Someone has done you wrong and you can't let go. You are full of resentment. You've tried to breathe, meditate, find closure, but nothing seems to work long term. Maybe you even have moments of relief, but before long, you're back to bitter thoughts of this person or situation taking up prime real estate in your mind. If left unchecked, resentment will poison your life and happiness. You already know this. But what do you do? What do I do, Abby? Well, today I'm teaching you how you've been approaching resentment all wrong. That's why it hasn't worked. And the one evidence-based way to get it right. So stay tuned. Well, hi there. Welcome back. I am your host. You know who I am, Dr. Abby Medcalf. Just Abby to you. Whenever you DM me or anything else or send me an email, don't call me Dr. Abby. I just go by Abby. That's just me. The doctor thing is nice because, I've had some schooling, right? The PhD thing is always helpful, but, that's really just in a professional setting. It's not like I make my kids call me Dr. Abby or something, or friends or anyone else. So, and, we're in a relationship. So my clients too. Nobody calls me Dr. Abby. However, when I'm referring to myself professionally, I do. So welcome back. Glad to have you here. First, I want to say thank you for the reviews people have been leaving about the podcast. I read them and my heart gets happy. I don't know if I should read them on here. I don't want to use up our time that way, but I do want I want to acknowledge the people who have taken the time to write them. And again, there's a lot of you listening. There's tens of thousands of people listening, and I don't have tens of thousands of reviews. So what you doing? We're in a relationship. I remind you all the time. It's reciprocal. We give, and we give the other way. I give, you give. It's a beautiful thing. We're in this together. So that is the way you can help me. If you want to buy a book or buy a mug or do something else, great. That's a way to help me. But another way to help me, I always say this, you don't have to spend a thing. I'm here. But you can help me by writing reviews. More people find me that way. You can help me by subscribing if you're watching on YouTube and seeing my straight hair today. I'm going straight today. Went straight today. I have big Jufro, big curly hair. Sometimes I like to straighten it. Anyway, and you can see my fabulous fashions and all that. And if you're watching on, YouTube, subscribe, like, leave a comment, whatever. My New York came out there. Whatever. Just... These are ways. Follow me on Instagram. All the ways to give love. There you go. All right. So I got to tell you, so this topic has been rolling around in my head for a long time. And I feel like I've been studying resentment for 40 years because we talk a lot about resentment in the 12 steps of recovery. So Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, the 12 steps, AA, NA, all the other anonymouses. We talk about resentment, a lot. And it is famously, you can say this if anyone is in recovery who's listening, go to 12-step meetings. We page 64 of what we call the big book of AA, this big blue book that runs around and is used in all the 12-step programs, more or less. It very famously says on page 64 in that book that resentment is the number one offender. It's a longer quote. Basically, they're saying to self and ego. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. That's the point. And when you're doing that, the people say like the 12 steps, and I'm not going to be teaching 12 steps today. Okay. We're going at it with some evidence-based things. And sadly, there's not a lot of evidence based around 12 steps. But having said that, there are 12 steps to recovery, and you do them in order, and they're in order on purpose for anybody listening who's in recovery. Make sure you do them in order. And when you get to the infamous step 4, the first 3 steps are kind of about, realizing you're powerless and, trying to be restored to sanity kind of thing. But the next 3 after that, 4, 5, and 6, that's when we're really focused on kind of looking at ourselves and what the hell we're doing. And there in step 4 is about something called a searching and fearless moral inventory, which basically everyone's terrified of step 4. If you do the 12 steps, people are terrified of step 4. No reason to be, but we are. But mostly it's because in that step, no matter, and people do steps differently, but no matter how you do it, you got to write about your resentments. You write about them. You list them. You identify the causes, the effects of your resentments. I mean, you go deep on resentment. And then, because the steps build on each other, when you get way down into step 10, I'm trying to remember my steps, we have an ongoing daily practice of this moral inventory where we focus on having, where we're making sure we're not having resentments, that we're admitting when we're wrong, that, we have humility, all the good things. It's really, I've said for so long that although I would not have wished heroin addiction on myself or on anyone, I feel like everyone should go through the 12 steps because it's really an instruction manual for living a happy, healthy life. It's really wonderful. So I've done that. I've done so many fourth steps where I've written out all my resentments. But let me say this. Nothing has helped me the way what I'm going to teach you today has helped. Nothing. I often had struggles really, quote unquote, letting go of these resentments. And 12 steps has a lot of little, we have a lot of sayings. We have these little sayings. And one of them is let go and let God. And I have to tell you, I wanted to put my fist through people's faces who used to say that to me. It's kind of like Nike's just do it, let go and let God. Just do it. Just do it. Fuck you, just do it. What if I could, I would. I wouldn't be listening to your stupid ad. I wouldn't be here in this meeting listening to people go on and on. Just wanted to smack people hard who say this kind of stuff. Like, could you just, anytime there's just in front of something, to me it's dismissing, even though I say just to you a lot. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be dismissing. But it's one of those things that, anyway, drives me nuts. So for me, working the 12 steps absolutely helped. It really got me to a lot of places. It's got me to sort of realize a lot of things. One of the things it got me to realize was that I resented myself. I resented myself for being an addict, wasting, quote unquote, all these years of my life. I resented how I looked. I resented my failed relationships. I just thought I was a piece of shit, and I resented myself and, all my wasted potential, I guess, or whatever. Not good. But that is where most of the help came for me, was kind of in the ahas and unearthing things. I didn't even know, didn't really truly understand what resentments were, which I'm going to explain them in a minute. But I guess my point is I could heap that resentment on myself just as well as I did onto others. So it was everywhere. And as I was working, these 12 steps, which really helped me, I will tell you, it, again, wasn't until I learned and started consistently practicing. I know you hate this part, but you got to consistently practice this tool I'm going to teach you today, that I feel like I really got to handle my resentments of others and start to also learn to forgive myself. Can I say even like myself? I don't know that I like myself all the time, but I'm pretty consistent with liking myself now, which is shocking. From the self-loathing I had for so many years. So I guess, okay. So I just want to say all that I feel like I've been studying this topic for many, many years. And here we are in a way that I've incorporated this in with my clients, the work I do with my clients, the work I do with myself, all the things. So before I get to the big tool, let's talk about what exactly it is. What exactly is resentment, Abby? Maybe, are you that person who brings up old resentments from your past with your partner? The thing they did, like something happens in the present and then you mention the 50 things they've done before that you didn't like. That's resentment. Maybe you feel like your dad has been insensitive and hurt your feelings, right? And you've been thinking about it all week or all year or the last 10 years. Maybe you work hard at your job all day and your boss never shows any appreciation. Anytime you use never or always, it's resentment. I know. There you go. Because you're not just talking about the moment. You're talking about it never happens, it always happens, whatever. That's resentment. There obviously are many, many situations that can lead to you feeling resentful in your relationships. So I want to point out first that resentment is different than anger, and anger can show up like hurt, frustration, disappointment, right? Anger, that resentment is different. Anger, resentment, frustration, disappointment, these are all feelings you have in a moment. Something happens and in a moment you feel it. Resentment is what you feel when you think about the situation later, when you replay it. So that, and then anger in a moment, what could have been just a passing thing because you're thinking about it over and over, turns into rage, anxiety, depression all day long, all week long, all year long. And so the word resentment, when you lay it out, right, re always means again, right? In the beginning of a word in English means again. And then sentiment, that other part of it, is to sense or to feel, right? So the word resent means to resense or refeel. And that's what you're doing when you play a situation in your head over and over. It's, again, it's one thing to feel a feeling. It's not like anger is a bad thing or disappointment or any of those in the moment, but it's another thing to replay a scene or a conversation in your mind, dredging up the hurt and the anger and the helplessness and the hopelessness again and again and again. That's where we get into trouble. So that's what I'm talking about today. If you just feel like you have an anger issue, quote unquote, and you feel like you let things go after that, you don't have resentment, you have anger. And, but I don't know why you'd be listening if you let things go all the time. Hey, if you do, call me. Maybe you can help me. No, I was kidding. Yeah, I don't, I hope healthier people listen. I think you're all pretty healthy if you're listening. I want to say it to you right now. If you're listening, you're good in so many ways because you know that you need to help yourself and you know that you want to be better. And I feel like I'm going to cry all of a sudden. Oh, and that's a lot, for us to have that faith in ourselves and that persistence. That's special. A lot of people don't have that. So the fact that you listen to me, that you're sitting here week after week or year after year maybe, and you're really listening and trying to change, yeah, kudos, really. Sorry, getting misty. Okay. Let me pull back a moment. I love you. I want you to get better, and I'm excited that you are. Okay, sorry. I digress. Let's get back to it. So I'm going to give you an example that this happened recently, actually. I have a client who was getting a promotion and her partner forgot. So she got a promotion, right? And it was starting in like 2 weeks. And when the day came, she, in the morning, like it's that Monday and she's starting and she's all excited and she's nervous though and anxious. And her partner was asking her all these things in the morning, like, did you do this? And what about that? And he was and she snapped at him and he's like, what's going on? She's like, well, I'm nervous and anxious. I've got this big day coming and you're sort of throwing things at me and you haven't said anything or, and he was like, what big day? What are you talking about? And he had forgotten about, like, she wasn't changing jobs. She was getting a promotion at work, but it was a big deal to her. She'd been trying for a long time. She was pissed. She lost her shit on him in the moment and then was spending her whole therapy session talking about it. And, I was trying to tell her, like, I guess it's fine in the moment. You were feeling hurt in a moment. I get it, but she was like way over the top to me about this thing. And, and again, anger is what she felt in that moment with him. Resentment is what she felt all day as she kept thinking of it and replaying it over and over. So I guess I just want to say those are the differences. We'll give more examples later. But anyway, I want to just bring it home what I'm talking about. I don't want anyone listening to think that it's unhealthy to have a feeling. It is not. Feelings are good. Feelings are our friends. Feelings aren't facts either. But it's when you're what we call perseverating, thinking about it over and over, that becomes a problem. So because resentment, when I think of it, resentment is basically chronic bitterness and rage. That's what resentment is at the end of the day. And I hope you remember, I've talked about rage before as different than anger. Anger Rage is anger plus helplessness. I've done a lot of episodes on anger, quite a few. If you search for anger on my website, in the search engine on my website, you will find all the things. Everything you need to know about anger. You'll find all of them. I'll link to them in the show notes. Yeah. But rage is anger plus helplessness. So what happens is that helpless feeling that, in your teeth, like behind your teeth, you're talking like that, which I'm not supposed to do. It's giving me more wrinkles. I hate those wrinkles around my mouth. I feel like my mother when I look in the mirror. I'm like, oh my God, this is not okay. I'm pushing towards 60 here, and I got to tell you, I don't like it. But anyway. But I digress again. Hey, that's what we do here. We chit chat. We have a talk together. So I do want you to separate those out, though. Anger, healthy, great, comes and goes. Rage, not. That's really part of resentment. Often that helpless feeling. And the problem is people focus on their anger when they should be focusing on the helpless feeling, because the anger is directed outwards, right? I'm angry at this person. But the helplessness that I feel with that person is the real problem. And you're focusing on the wrong thing. But anyway, I do that in another episode. So but it's that helpless feeling that spins you out of control, right? It is. And the big problem with getting rid of resentment, here's the deal, is that it's a habit of thought. It becomes a pattern of how you react to things that, something upsets you, you do or don't say something in a moment, or you feel helpless, or you feel like something isn't changing the way you want it. And you start to then have this habit of perseverating, of thinking about this thing all day long. And that is re-sensing it, replaying it, and you're really getting yourself into trouble. And so here's the key. The reason you have tried tools in the past to get over resentment and they failed is because you're not approaching this like changing a habit. You're approaching it with an idea that, you just need to stop thinking about it or let it go. But you don't give yourself the proper tools to do that. It's again kind of like the Nike ad, just do it. Nah. But how do you just do it? if everybody could just do it, we'd have a world of very thin people, at least a nation here in the United States where everybody seems chubby, where I seem chubby lately. It would be very easy to go work out. It's not, because I know what really it means. That you have to not think and just go do it. Mel Robbins talks about the 5-second rule, like just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and launch and just do the thing. But again, I know all this stuff is hard. So let's talk now about why it's important before we jump in. Why is letting go of resentment so important? Who cares? Why can't I just perseverate all day, Abby, and feel like shit? Well, that should be answered itself. But here's the deal. We know from the research that holding on to resentment is destructive to your physical and your mental health. And I'll link to all the studies in the show notes page, or in the related, the corresponding blog post on my relationship tips and tool page, like I always do. So you can go check all my research out later, because I love the research. Studies have shown that holding on to resentments increases your blood pressure and your heart rate. It contributes to chronic pain. It's correlated with heart disease. I could go on and on. It's crazy what resentment does. And if that's not bad enough, my fine furry friends, holding on to resentment and rage has been linked to depression, to anxiety, to exacerbation of those things if you already have them, to making them worse, to sexual dysfunction, to rockier interpersonal relationships, romantic, parenting, career. It hurts your career. I know. And it all boils down to this. Okay, let's get ready. When you ruminate all day, when you think all day about your anger, hurt, resentment with a particular person or situation or whatever, you flood your brain with stress hormones. That's what you're doing, because you're putting yourself in state. I'm going to talk about this piece a lot, okay? But you're putting yourself in state, and that's why the tool I'm going to give you works, because it takes care of this part, this hijacking of your brain. Your brain, you're thinking about, oh, my partner, this person, my boss, what an asshole. You're playing it over, in the meeting, and then he said this, then I did this, and I felt so embarrassed, and I can't believe my boss, talked to me bitched me out in front of the whole staff and undermined my authority, and you're picturing it, and you're picturing how embarrassed you felt and how ashamed you felt. Oh, you've got stress hormones, cortisol, epinephrine, which is adrenaline basically, norepinephrine, all these, because your brain literally thinks it's under attack. Again, you felt like you were under attack in the meeting when your boss was yelling at you, and now you feel it again because you're replaying the whole thing. All of these stress hormones keep that limbic system that I talked about so much, and I'll link to in the show notes if you want to learn more about your lizard brain. It keeps it activated, which means the thinking, rational part of your brain is shut down. Remember, I've said this over and over. When your limbic is lit up in your brain, if you're doing like a functional MRI of your brain, or a PET scan, anything, fMRI is really a thing. And when the limbic is lit up, when this part of your brain is lit up and that cortisol is flying around and all that stuff is happening, your amygdala is hot, all the things, your hypothalamus is kicked on, right? Everything's going. When that's happening, your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain, looks like there's a blanket over it. Literally, you can't access that nice thinking part of your brain. And it makes sense, because if I was running from a tiger, truly, that's part of our evolution, right? I'm running from a big bear, something that's about to eat me. I shouldn't stop and rest and think about all my things and, let me put a PowerPoint together and all the pros and cons of all. No, I need to be focused, which is what all these good stress hormones do help me do. They help me focus my brain on survival. They help me really narrow my thinking. They help me get away from the bear as quickly as possible. However, when there's no bear chasing me and I'm still doing that, that's a problem. It's now difficult to concentrate on anything else. You've sat down. You think your brain, again, thinks the lion is still chasing you because you were just thinking yet again about how pissed you are at your girlfriend. And so then you're sitting at your desk trying to finish that Excel spreadsheet. Ha ha ha. Yeah, that's why you can't do it. It's about, of course you can't. Your brain thinks you should be thinking about the lion. So it keeps bringing your attention back. I talked about this recently too in my episode on anxiety and how it's different than stress, but right, I go deep on it, so go listen there too. So it makes it impossible to think of effective ways to resolve whatever's happened or to remember all the great tools Abby taught you. I taught you all the good things. It is the worst catch-22 there is. So you're thinking about the thing, which is shutting down your thinking brain, which makes you think more about the thing. So you're just in a circle of a spiral of death. Yes, you are. Okay. I'm screaming at you. That's how upset I am about this. So how do you let go of the resentment? How you do it, Abby? Let's get to it. Why are we still talking about all this stuff? Because as always, I give you the background, I give you the why, I give you all that, and then I give you the how. I'm always going to give you the how. You know that. No, always going to give you the love. But I really want you to understand always what's happening and why, and then how to change it. All right. So again, I'm going to kind of restate what I said earlier. The mistake most people make, the mistake you probably have made before when you've tried to let go of resentment, when you have tried to change this, is that you approach letting go of resentment as something, again, you need to resolve, which is impossible due to this whole, limbic system hijacking thing I just said. Okay, so it's impossible. That's what's so hard. And focusing on the other person is keeping you stuck in a victim role where nothing changes. So those are really the two problems, and I'm going to put them together right now in one answer. So, because I know you, I see you, I hear you, my clients say this, I get DMs, I get emails, I see you. You're thinking, if this person apologizes, then I'll be able to let go of my resentments. Or, no, I don't have a camera in your home. I just know this is what you're saying. Or if this person can listen and show me that they understand my viewpoint, then I'll be able to let go of my resentments. Then I'll feel heard. Then I'll feel not. Yeah. But that's not where you need to focus. In fact, I'm telling you, it's what's keeping you in a negative, unending cycle of misery and resentment. I know it's hard to hear, but instead, you need to remember that resentment, again, is this habit of thought. So you need to approach this as breaking a habit and have a new way of thinking, because it's not a physical habit, right? It's a thought habit. So you have to break the thought thinking habit. And you have to have a new way of thinking about the event or the person or your life or yourself. You have to. That is the way out of resentment. Not, I don't know. The other stuff that I always hear as recommendations are the things you can do after. Work on forgiveness, work on, go meditate, self-compassion. I have a fabulous self-compassion video on YouTube. We'll link to it, but Abby Medcalf, loving kindness meditation. I think, loving kindness meditation, which is all about self-compassion and compassion of others. It's free. You don't have to put in your email. These are the things that you do. And I'm not saying they're not helpful to work on in the meantime, but this is always where I got stuck with 12 steps and other things that were helping me work on my resentments. I would keep getting stuck in a certain kind of pattern because when your brain is still hijacked, you can't really access your thinking about those other things. You can't access the knowledge. You can't access those memories, those rational logic part of your brain. You can't. It's not that you won't, it's that you can't. And then we sort of blame ourselves. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Because you're human and your brain is hijacked. So we have to get out of the brain hijacking first, and then you can use all the other fabulous tools that you've learned from Abby and others. So the habit of thought at the bottom of your resentment is this: if X happens, I'd feel better. That's your problem. That's what you think, and that's why you're resentful. I know you're like, I don't think that, Abby. Yeah, if you think about your thoughts, you'll realize that, well, what do you want to resolve that? How do you think that's going to go away? Oh, well, if they would just this, if my partner apologizes, I'll feel better. If my boss acted a different way, I'd feel better. If my dad acknowledged my wants and desires, I'd feel better. If. When. Nope. The only way for you to feel better is for you to take friggin' responsibility and control. Because here's your aha moment. I'm going to drum roll on my desk. Can you hear that? I don't even know if that comes through. Here, ready? This is it. This is what it all is. Clinging to resentment is a sign that you are out of control. I'm going to say it again. Holding on to your resentment, your grudge, whatever you want to call it, is a sign that you're out of control. You are not in control of your thinking. Your brain is hijacked. It is leading you. You are the child, not the master. I don't care how you want to say that, but that's the problem. Since you're the one who's out of control, it's not up to someone else to fix it. It is not. You are not a little kid having a tantrum and mommy has to come in and give you a hug. I don't expect a 3-year-old to necessarily have self-regulation. We teach them that. This is your problem now. You're having sort of an adult tantrum, but you're killing yourself. You're poisoning yourself. It's driving me crazy, and it's driving you crazier. And that's why you're listening. I am here to give you the tough love. It's not tough. It's just love. I am here to give you the love. I'm here. This is what is going to change it. So you can sit here right now. I know some of you are listening and like, nah, it's bullshit, Abby. And no, really, I would feel better if. It's sort of like that argument, like, oh, I'd feel better if I had $1 million or $100 million or whatever. I know I'd be happy. I work with very miserable billionaires, and I will tell you right now, I know the joke. I'd rather cry in my Maserati. I get it. But this idea that there's something, or when I have a partner, I'll be happier. And when again, whenever that's it, you could be happy now. And you should be. I want you to be. I love you. It's why I'm yelling at you right now. I want that for you. The more resentment you feel, the longer you feel it, the more often you feel it, the more out of control you are. And you continue to be out of control because you're acting like a victim. You are. This is your mama love, Jewish mother love, Jewish mother bossiness and love. There is only one way to begin the process of letting go of resentment, and that is, right, this habit of thought, is that you need to change your perspective so you can shift your thinking. You feel the way you think. I've said over and over, it's the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy and rational emotive therapy. You feel the way you think. And without that shift, you won't be able to move forward and feel better. You might get temporary reprieves, but you know how this stuff comes back, and that's why you're listening right now? I know. So, and I want to share, so I'm going to share, so we're going to share the tool, and I'm going to give you an example of a client and how we did this together. I'm about to share it. Don't worry. I'm here with you. So I have a client, and she was feeling really resentful after a birthday dinner she had. This is a few months ago now, but this is a perfect example. So she'd gone out with her partner and two other couples to, you know, her like best friends or whatever, to this great restaurant. She'd been looking forward to it. And at the dinner, her partner made a joke at her expense. And she felt embarrassed and criticized in front of her friends is really what happened. She got really angry in that moment, but she was trying to like have a good time. So she was doing her best through the dinner to, you know, let it go. We love that, right? Let it go in the moment. But when she was relaying it to me, she said she felt kind of slightly uncomfortable for the rest of the dinner, and it kept kind of coming up in her head. She'd be having fun, and then, you know, or feeling loving towards a partner, he would say something else, and then she'd be pissed. So the next day, she said something to her partner, but initially he dismissed her. He said something like, you know, oh, I was just making a joke. You get so sensitive, you know, like gaslighting bullshit people say. Yeah. He's not a narcissist, by the way. He's not a horrible human. Just because you do, we all can accidentally gaslight and say something like that because we get defensive. But so she kept pushing though, and he did finally acknowledge it. Ooh, sorry, I'm hiccuping. He did finally acknowledge it, but he said, you know, he kind of said, oh yeah, I see what you mean. I'm sorry. And she didn't feel like that was enough. She didn't feel like he acknowledged it enough. He didn't feel bad enough about how hurt she was by what he said. I know, I see you. I know, right now you're like, damn it, I do that, Abby. Damn it. Yes, you do. I know you do. We get those, they never feel like enough. They never feel like they're hurting enough. They don't really realize the depth of our pain and how much that upset us. And that's why even after people apologize, sometimes we're like, well, yeah, you know, really hurt my feelings. It's like, I've already apologized. I don't know how else to keep apologizing. It's because we don't feel it's enough. So when, you know, she came to therapy and she was kind of confessed to me that she'd been replaying that night and what her partner said over and over, right? Of course she did. Because she was in this frame of mind, she started remembering, of course, all the other times he'd acted like a jerk, and she got more and more angry. So all week she's getting more resentful, because she's, you know, always, never, all the time, you know, yeah, she's deep in now. So she's had the whole week to just think about all the ways, okay, and how upset she was with him. And I explained to her that what she had, you know, that when she had these recurring thoughts, again, think about it. She was putting herself right back in that situation. She was seeing her partner say the thing. She was watching her friends laugh, or she noticed that she said, oh, my best friend couldn't even look at me for a while, you know, and she was having all these thoughts that her best friend was embarrassed by the interaction, that she felt sorry for her, all the things. She was living in that moment again. So all the same neurons are firing, all those same neurotransmitters are being released, those hormones are released. She was stuck in the resentment habit of thought, because to her, the lion was still chasing. That's what her brain thought. The lion is still chasing me. The lion is still chasing me. All the things I said earlier, she was hijacked. All that stuff happened, and then she started like loading on the bear. So here is your answer. I know I'm getting there. I always give it to you. I don't know why you're anxious. You're like, just say it already, Abby. I'm saying it. It's self-distancing. That's your answer. Now, there's a specific way to do this. I've talked about self-distancing before when we talk about things like, instead of saying, I'm anxious, you say, I feel anxiety. You're distancing yourself from the feeling. But what I'm about to explain to you is actually a little different. It's a form of self-distancing, but it's really the real thing. The kind of the separating yourself from a thought is a lighter version of what I'm about to say. So, because really what you want to do instead, you do want to replay that conflict. I know you do. Yes, you do. But you want to change your visual perspective, okay, with this self-distancing. And I want to just take a minute. So there's these two psychologists, and I'll probably say their names wrong, and I apologize. There's Ayduk, Ayduk. He's at UC Berkeley, or was. And Ethan Kross. Sorry, I feel terrible that I'm saying one name more easily than another. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I should have looked up how to pronounce his name earlier, and I did not. So I should have done that. Okay. Just outing myself. All right. So Kross is from University of Michigan, and they've been conducting research on self-distancing. And again, I'll link to all the studies, but their studies show that it's highly effective in letting go of resentment and anger and all those ucky feelings you don't like. Here's what you do. What you do with self-distancing is you replay the event, but from a third person perspective instead of the first person perspective. Okay. So in their research, they asked participants to recall a conflict from a close personal relationship. And they asked them to pick something that was still unresolved and still upsetting them a lot. Okay. So they really wanted like the toughest of the tough. So some of the participants recalled the situation from a first person point of view where they were, which we've been describing, where you're right there in the moment with that other person. And then, oh my God, I said this and they said that. My friend was embarrassed, right? All the things I mentioned with my client. And then others in this group use the self-distancing. And so they recalled the situation from a third person view, where this is that proverbial, fly on the wall. Okay. And what they found, so that they're like out of body experience seeing themselves and the situation. What they found is that the participants who use self-distancing experienced much less intense emotional reactions, much less intense physical reactions. As a matter of fact, physically they had less of a rise in blood pressure. It went back to baseline quicker. Emotionally, they felt less triggered. They had less emotional reactions overall. And what's really funny, because I always talk about you can never have closure and to stop that, and I did a whole episode on it. But I will tell you that those people who practice self-distancing actually said they felt closure more often. Isn't that funny? So there you go. So when you're using this technique, you want to be careful. You have to stick to the facts. You don't try to guess what anyone else is thinking or feeling. You don't assume you know what they really meant. The only evidence you're using is the actual words spoken and what actions you can observe, what you can see. What you're doing is you're trimming away the emotionally charged fat. You're getting rid of your interpretations, and you're getting more clarity on the facts instead, on what truly happened instead. So getting back to my client and her resentments over her birthday dinner. So here's what we did. I asked her to picture herself at that dinner again. That's what we just did it right in session. I said, but this time, again, I asked her to take that fly on the wall perspective. What I do is I tell people to picture a video camera above, so with her, I said, picture a video camera like above the table that you're all eating at, and instead of watching the scene with your own eyes, I want you to be the video camera operator. I want you to be in that video camera. And I asked her to imagine seeing what happened from that more distant, like that third, again, that's the third person perspective. So she's picturing herself outside her body watching the scene. This is what's so important. You can't be in your body. You can't be yourself in there. You have to be outside you're not directing it, but you're outside seeing it. While the rest is going on. You're an observer. So, and what happened, I had her do that and I had her go through it. Then I'm like, how do you feel? And she said, I'm obviously not happy about what happened, but she was able for sure to have much more perspective about what happened. And she just wasn't feeling so triggered. She wasn't feeling so hijacked. And she said that she realized that what she was really feeling was embarrassed and dismissed. And as we talked, she was really able to get in touch with compassion for herself, mostly. Some for her partner even. She said, he doesn't, as we talked, she said, my partner feels intimidated by these friends. My client is very educated, and her partner is really bright and brilliant, has a great job, but didn't have formal schooling. He actually went into the military for, I think, 6 years, 8 years, something. And then when he came out, he had a great skill, and he now works like security, like tech security. He makes good money and he does well, but she said he definitely feels different than her friends. And so she started to see, he was like, he makes these jokes to like bring me down almost, or bring us all down maybe, so that he can feel more, because her friends are all very educated. And she was starting to see that, like her guess at it anyway. Like, we don't really know what he's thinking or doing, right? But it makes sense. And she said she does notice that he tends to only act this way in certain kinds of groups of people, not all the time, and certainly never when they're alone. She said he never does this stuff when we're alone. And unless something kind of comes up that's related to his feeling less than her. So it's like he's leveling the playing field. So she was really able to get in touch with some different compassion for herself. And she said, she started, her friends, she's like, her one friend, there's only the two girlfriends there, and their husbands. And she said, they love me. They know me. This is not something they were really upset about or whatever. I just was putting a lot on them because I felt embarrassed. And, she was really able to, you can even hear it how I'm talking about it. She just was calmer. She was calmer talking about it. And we started discussing her relationship from a new perspective, in other sessions too, not just obviously all in that one. Our sessions are only so long. But instead of complaining about her partner, which she would do, kind of often, and I was always steering her away from that, complaining. I did an episode on complaining too, because it's as bad for you as bacon. I think is what I even called that episode. Complaining is just not helpful. And again, you're always looking at the other person. You're acting like a victim. Whenever we complain, I never complain about gravity, right? I don't complain about gravity because I can't do anything about gravity, so I don't complain about it. It just is a fact. It's this thing. But anything I think I can change, I complain about. And you should notice that for yourself too. We complain about things that we should change. Just know that anytime. Anytime. If you're complaining about your weight, something you can change. If you're complaining about the state of the world, it's something you can change. We're complaining because we think we're not doing enough, right? If you hate politics or something, are you volunteering? Are you giving money? Are you doing anything? Are you just saying there's nothing we can do and you're complaining? Like, what are you doing? So, it was really great watching her. She started to really take responsibility for her life, for what she was allowing in her relationships, all of them, not just her partner, but in other ones too. And she had grown up in a house where I think many people do, where this kind of behavior was common. So it seemed, normal or usual to her. And that someone would have sarcastic comments or knock someone off their perch, so to speak, or, say things like you're too big for your britches, or, have little jabs when you're doing well, and, or just jabs in general, like that was a way to quote unquote show love. And so when you grow up with that, it seems normal. So when you're in a relationship and that starts to happen, there's a part of you that doesn't like it, but you sort of get it. You're like, oh, that's what it looks like. That's just normal in relationships. And so when she first started dating him, she didn't really call it out much because it didn't happen much, first of all. It usually doesn't when people are first together, although sometimes it does. And she's now seeing that it's a reflection of him. But more importantly, on what she will and won't accept. That's really what she's seeing, is that she has set up these boundaries all this time in the relationship. She's been putting up with this behavior for all this time and allowing it. And when I say that, I know some of you are like, because she had said things to him before. This wasn't the only time she had said something about it. And so when I say that you keep allowing it, is if you're in a relationship right now and you're telling the other person to stop doing something, whatever that is, like that's really hurting your feelings, like that's big. I don't mean leaving the toilet seat up. That's bullshit. If it's like, leave that alone. I'm talking about that they make jokes at your expense, that they yell at you, that they ignore you, that they give you whatever. I'm talking about real shit. Okay. Not top off the toothpaste bullshit. I'm talking about the real stuff of the relationship that makes you feel small and inconsequential. If that's happening still and then that's on you. I know don't turn me off. Don't stop listening. It means that your boundary hasn't been clear. It's not, I've said this before, it's not a boundary to tell someone stop doing that. That's not a boundary. That's stating your standard. Okay? You're stating your standard. The boundary is when you do something to back it up. The boundary is when you leave the house when they do that. The boundary is when you hang up the phone. The boundary is the action that you take after. Okay? So that it stops happening. And I know everyone in their head thinks, well, I don't want to break up with this person. I didn't say break up. I didn't say that. I said have a boundary. Make it very clear. And it might be that you ultimately can't be with this person. I don't know. But I think most of the time people can work this stuff out. But until someone realizes how much this is affecting the two of you, and until it starts to affect them, nothing's going to change. So, and I don't say do that as a punishment. I don't say leave the house as a punishment. Don't punish them. This isn't on them. This is you. I say love yourself. You should be leaving as a walking out the door or hanging up the phone, or, just again, telling them with a lot of clarity, or not going to Thanksgiving at your parents' house, from love, boundaries are love, from clarity, from holding your head up high. That's what it's from. It's not to punish them. It is not an ultimatum. It is not a threat. It just is. If a policeman is, if I'm speeding on a road and a cop gives me a ticket, he's not like yelling at me when he comes to the window, what's wrong with you? Why are you speeding on my highway? How dare you? He doesn't take it personally. He gives me the ticket and I have to go deal. I have to go pay the consequence. That's what this is. Just take the emotionality out of it on that level, or any of the negative emotions, I guess I would say, and put in the love, put in the pot. I don't think that the cop on the highway is love for me, but who knows? But you see where I'm going here? And I will tell you that as we did this work, just from this one thing, it totally changed the nature of our work together. And she started to the focus of our sessions really turned to problem solving and how to set up better boundaries with her partner. And of course, other people, because it wasn't just with him, right? She started focusing on taking real responsibility for her life and relationships. She started focusing on her self-esteem. She started focusing, and by the way, she started focusing on some shit she could let go. She really could let go. She was realizing that, yeah, I'm focused on the toilet seat. Like, why? Why is this the razor that everything is, gonna get cut on? Like, what is my problem? Because it is so little, right? So if something so little is so big, what is that? And it's, again, always about you and your boundaries. And sometimes what we come to find is that it doesn't really matter. It took me a few years, but I realized that Gary's, few whiskers left in the sink, I've talked about them before, don't really matter. It's okay. He's not disrespecting me. He's not anything. He's just isn't quite as detailed in the cleanliness process as I am. He wipes most of the sink. He gives it a good swoosh, and it takes me a few seconds to do the rest of the swoosh, and it's for me, and I've talked about this before too. But you start to realize what's important and what's not, and you start to focus on what's truly important and what you need and not what you don't need. And that is because now your prefrontal cortex is working. You've calmed that limbic system. You've shut that puppy down. You started to really go like, what's important? And you start to get smart, and you start to get happy, and you start to get calm and serene and satisfied. When you practice self-distancing in this way consistently, you'll find that you start to be much more self-reflective instead of focused on other people. And that's where you find more self-efficacy, problem solving, instead of being emotionally reactive. And that's really the goal. And you'll see you start letting go of resentments to yourself too, right? What I just said, I'm thinking right now, my client stopped beating herself up for not voicing her needs more. And instead she just started changing her behaviors. That's what started to happen. She used to really beat herself up. What's wrong with me? Why don't I let this go for so long, blah, 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 and then we start catastrophizing and generalizing. Not helpful, right? And I want to wrap up just by saying this. Acceptance and forgiveness are needed, obviously, all those things. But that's all needed. But letting go of resentments is hard to do when your brain is hijacked. It's hard to accept. It's hard to forgive. It's hard to do those things when your brain is so activated, because you can't, I don't care who you are, you can't access that part of your brain that's going to be helpful when you're so wrapped up in blame of yourself, of other people, of anything. So you start with changing your habits of thought. You start with changing your thoughts, and you will absolutely start to change how you feel and how you act. That's how it happens. This obviously works in a lot of different ways for a lot of things, but this thing in resentment, this is your ticket. So, starting today, if there's anything you're resentful about, and again, what do you have to be? You got to be mindful. Hello, download my mindfulness starter kit if you haven't yet. Start meditating. I have a meditation starter kit. Start doing, they're free. If you haven't, start being mindful. And when you're mindful, you'll notice, oh my gosh, I've just been thinking about my partner and how pissed I am. Oh, what do I have to do? Oh yeah, let me play that scene again in the kitchen where he walked in while I was cleaning the dishes and just sat and talked to me while I was cleaning and didn't start cleaning. That's a whole thing. Men, don't stand there, because the guy's thinking, well, I was in there talking to her. She should have been happy. Like, she keeps asking for us to spend time together. I thought it would make the time go quicker. I cooked dinner. It was her turn to clean the dishes. It's like, just help. Stop it. Anyway, and talk. But you have this in your head, and right there you would, in that moment, realize you're thinking about it, and you'd stop and you go, okay, let me do it again. There's a video camera on the wall. Let me look down at what's happening. And you would probably start to see, oh, he was trying to talk to me and he was doing his best. He, at least, he was talking. I would like more, but I don't also have to be so upset. He was giving a first effort. And I like that first effort, and I want to be part of that. And I want a boundary around how we deal with our housework together, where it doesn't feel quite so yours and mine, where it feels more like ours. And I'm going to approach that, see where it goes, start problem solving. It doesn't mean that you just go, oh, I should just be grateful that he talked to me. That's crap. But it does mean that you start to see things differently and then problem solve. Okay, on the other side. And you would do this, and you'd find the compassion, you'd get unhijacked, and you wouldn't start to then think of all the other ways he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, or she's not doing what she's supposed to be doing. You start to really distance and get a better handle on your life. Okay, there you go. That's it for resentment today. I'm sure I'll maybe revisit this in the future. Who knows? If you haven't written in yet with a topic you'd like to hear about, please do. Abby@abbymedcalf.com, or you can DM me on social media. Usually IG is the best way to get me. I'm not sure I'm even on Facebook anymore very much. IG is your better bet at this point. Feel free. Or email me, whatever works. Yeah, let me know. We're coming up on the end of this season. Oh my gosh. And then we'll be starting season 6 in August. I don't know when August of 2023. I don't know when you're listening, but you might be hearing this in August of 24. I don't know if you're just catching up. But regardless, I know you have a lot of things you could be listening to right now, and you're listening to me and you're spending time with me, and that always means a lot. I can't even describe how much I look forward to sitting here with you. I'm like, oh, I get to do the podcast today. That's literally how I think about it. And I know that's got to come across, because it's how I feel every time. I think this is episode 241. So 240 times plus I've sat down and done this. And it's just bringing so much joy and happiness in my life. And I'm going to cry again. I won't, though. And I really appreciate you. So if no one told you this week that you're beautiful and that you're loved and whole just as you are, then I'm going to right now. I love you so much. You have a great week, and I'll talk to you real soon.